Hello, passengers. Welcome aboard Long Walk Talks Lost. This is your pilot speaking. My name is David Hensley, and I'm the owner and creative director of Long Walk Productions. I am joined tonight by my two co-pilots,
Robert Bradford
and Cara Hayes.
And we are kicking off Season 3 of the television show Lost.
Yay.
As part of our 20-year retrospective that gets harder to say every single time. Not like physically harder, I mean like emotionally and existentially. And
if it helps, for season 3, we're only on like a 17-year retrospective.
That's a good point. There you go. Thank you, Robert. I appreciate that.
That helps.
Yeah, it's weird to think that like we'll talk about it more when I get to the relevant dates thing here, but we've covered 2 full seasons of this show in the time that it took the first season to air.
Wow.
And we'll be like partway into season 3 by the time the first season wrapped up 20 years ago. That's really weird to think.
Teach those slackers.
Right? Why weren't they just cranking them out like we do? Anyway, we're going to start with our themed dinner. Since a portion of one of these episodes involves Sawyer having to figure out a Rube Goldberg device to get a fish biscuit, we decided that we were going to have a fish-themed dinner, courtesy of Robert Bradford, who made fish fillets and fish sticks. And I made a big pot of macaroni and cheese to go with them. And Cara made the buttered corn and brownies.
Yay.
Yum.
Yeah, overall, very tasty meal.
Yes.
I don't think we've had a bad one so far.
No.
It's worked out.
Yeah, we're continually trying to top ourselves.
Yeah, even though my 3-minute meal was,
Oh, yeah.
Still.
Okay. Yeah, there was a...
wasn't the worst thing. Yeah.
I mean, there have been some that were lower down than others, but...
Yeah. Can't go wrong with, like a big pile of melted cheese.
It's true. Or just a corn dog.
Fucking corn dogs.
Fucking corn dogs. Anyway, all right, we're going to start with episode 301, A Tale of Two Cities. It is day 68, and this is a Jack episode. And boy, we had a lot of notes to take about this episode, and then not a whole lot about the other two, which I feel like really says something about the way this season kicks off. Just real quick, I think I might have watched this more recently than the two of you, but based on your memory, like, how do you feel overall about this season memory-wise?
So for me, like, this setting, like with the little houses and whatnot, I distinctly remember this book club meeting, and this is where I have probably the most memories of this season. I couldn't tell you a single thing that happens after this, really, but this ticked all the memories for me.
For me, I think this was probably the closest I came to actually dropping off while I was watching it live. In the early going of this, I just remember season 3 just felt rough. It felt scattered. The treading water aspect of creative was just getting more and more obvious, and we've talked about it before. I'm sure we'll talk about it again, but this was the season where even the creators were like, we need to have an end point. We need to know when we can start steering towards actually wrapping up storylines. And you could tell that they're feeling that in these first few episodes. And while they've got a lot of strong elements and they're introducing characters and things that are going to be really awesome down the road, I did watch these 3 episodes and kind of remember why I felt that way. Mm-hmm. It's not bad, but there's kind of an aimlessness to it.
I do think this is the weakest season overall, as far as my memory goes. I'll be interested to see if that changes. Like, I remember thinking season 2 was the strongest, and then we finished that, and I said, maybe not. So maybe I'll be surprised. But overall, yeah, this is the weak point of the show. But anyway, back to the episode itself, A Tale of Two Cities. It opens with an iWatch.
Yay.
Which has now become iconic for this show.
Iconic.
I wish I had intended that, but here we are. We're introduced to Juliet the same sort of way that we were introduced to Desmond back in season 1. It appears that she is doing something mundane off island, but no, she is in a nice little house on the island, listening to music and hosting a book club. So, like, right away, the previously on that we got at the beginning of this episode that included Anna Lucia saying these people are monsters, Not so much. That's kind of disproved right a freaking way.
Yeah, they were literally in the middle of a book club when Oceanic Flight 815 came screaming over their island.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's worth mentioning that the book that they were reading, which one member of the group takes serious offense to. No, not the three of us.
Oh,
Yeah, no,
I was like,
no.
what?
A member of the book club in the episode.
Yes, and that guy should immediately be executed.
I agree.
Why
He
couldn't they
doesn't-
send him to get stabbed to death by Ana Lucia?
Right. They're reading the book Carrie, Stephen King's first book. I don't know if there's any thematic link there.
I guess you could say it sets up Juliet as somebody who's got an incredibly high tolerance for being pushed around, but gets dangerous when you push her too far.
Mm-hmm. And, Walt was a special kid who had telekinesis, among other things.
Yeah.
It's flimsy, but it's there.
Yeah.
Anyway, so after they see the plane break up and start to crash, Ben goes into manipulative bastard mode. This is really, after spending so much of last season just watching him get the shit beat out of him and trash talk, it's nice to see the first inklings of the Ben that we're going to love and hate in equal measures.
It does feel like the writers don't quite have a handle on... I think at this point they knew what he wanted from Jack. I mean, they're close enough to when that'll be revealed that it was probably something that Michael Emerson was aware of. But the bigger ideas of what's driving him, of like the deep insecurities that are just at the root of all his manipulative deceptions, we're not going to get to see that till later in the season. So, like, Emerson's performance is good enough to carry it for a while. But that's one of the things I was talking about. I'm just like... It's fun to see him, but it's also like, man, this guy is going to get so much better as he gets crazier.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I forgot. And, I guess I don't remember it from anything that I've seen him in recently. I don't remember him looking like he had no eyelashes or eyebrows. They're just very, very light. I don't know. It's like all I can see every time I look at him. And I love him, but God, they could have just put a little mascara on him just to... I don't know.
Well, maybe he got him beaten off last season when Saeed punched his eyelashes and his eyebrows off.
Oh, that could be. I didn't think about that.
Maybe
Yeah.
that's some Iraqi torture method that we're not aware of, where you slice off a person's.
Pluck.
I was like, you don't even know. Listen, that is torture. Mm-mm.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it is an American torture method as well.
Yeah.
Off island, like I said, this is a Jack episode. So the first thing we see is him stalking his ex-wife as she hooks up, not hooks up in the Gen Z way that we say hook up, but links up with her new boyfriend, who we dubbed Timu Paul Rudd.
The thing is, that's a different guy than we see at the end of the episodes. That might have just been like a male coworker that she was moderately friendly with.
That's a good point.
But yeah, no, we all, for a minute, I think we looked at our phones like, is that Paul Rudd?
Really looked like him.
And I mean, it would have fit at this time. The Paul Rudd, wasn't a Marvel star then, still doing smaller stuff. And also, they'd had a whole bunch of really great guest stars, and will continue to have more great guest stars. So it wouldn't have surprised me, but it took us all aback a little bit. But no, it was not Paul Rudd.
Back on the island, we get a little foreshadowing for a character reveal. It's coming up when Kate wakes up in sort of a locker room space, and Tom, formerly known as Mr. Friendly, tells her to take a shower. And when she gets offended at the idea of showering in front of him, he just laughs and says, "Kate, you're not my type." Which fans speculated at the time meant that Tom was into dudes, which would be confirmed in season 4. But it's one of those things that TV did a lot in the mid-aughts, which was wink and tease at a character being gay or lesbian, but treated as like some big secret reveal. And it was just sort of like, we were still skittish about those things on network TV back then. But everything's great now, so, cool.
Yeah.
Sawyer, meanwhile, wakes up in a cage.
Good save, Robert.
Thank you. And despite the warnings of the guy in the cage sort of across the path from him, he pushes the big button that makes a buzzing noise when he touches it, which, in his defense, I would have done too. And he gets shocked and blasted across the walls of his cage.
Yeah, but eventually he does figure out this weird device and is rewarded with a fish biscuit, some polar bear food, and clean water. I assume clean water, I hope.
I would definitely hope.
Hopefully it's not seawater.
It does seem like we have kind of all three characters back in their status quo. I swear, listeners, by the time we're done with season 3, I hope this cough is over.
Well, it's okay because all three of us are in the same. Like, the pollen is thick in the air.
Yep.
There's colds going around. So all three of us are like just sticking our heads just off mic so we can cough every few minutes. I'm sure that's some kind of weird ASMR for somebody.
Why didn't y'all tell me about this before I moved down to South Carolina?
Nobody told me either, so sorry.
But yeah, so we see Jack. He wakes up. He is sweaty, pale, and shouting angrily. Kate is told to take a sexy shower and get a pretty dress. And Sawyer gets hostile and snarky to a stranger and then suffers. So, like, everybody's right back in their grooves.
Yeah, the status quo, just on a different island now.
Also,
Well, is it a different island?
I don't think we find that out yet, but we do eventually, because we see the cold open. It shows that the village they're in is on the main island, but we eventually find out that where Jack, Kate, and Sawyer are being held is a different place in a separate island.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, sorry, spoiler alert.
On a 20-year-old show.
Another weird moment comes in the flashbacks because Jack goes to some kind of divorce proceeding. His wife asks where his lawyer is when he gets there, which is weird because her lawyer is nowhere to be seen either. Her phone rings, she answers it, and is like, yeah, he just got here. And laughs. And I'm like, what kind of zinger did this guy have about her soon-to-be ex-husband showing up on time?
I told you he'd show up without a lawyer. What a dumbass.
Yeah, that was a strange
Yeah, like
addition.
They're really driving home how sad Jack has gotten at this point, to the point of like cringiness, like that, like hate watch sort of, not hate watch, but the mutual awkwardness. What's the phrase I'm looking here? Like that office style kind of humor of
Secondhand embarrassment is
there
how
we
Gina
go.
describes it.
Yeah, there you go. Secondhand embarrassment that you feel for Jack throughout this episode because he fucks up everything in this episode.
I think for me, the low point is when, well, it comes later, but he chases his father to a hotel that turns out to be where he's having an AA meeting. And even when it's clear that that's what he's there for, and the person running the meeting is like, Jack, your dad's been sober for 50 days. Jack just takes that as an excuse to turn like, yeah, I bet he told you I never had what it took, didn't he? It's just like, oh, man.
Yeah, it's not all about you, Jack.
Yeah, this is, well, not the lowest point in Jack's life. It's a low point.
Probably pre-Island, it was his lowest point.
Yeah. We're gonna, the season is going to end really low for Jack as well. I took down a note here because I thought it was really interesting whenever we do get to see Jack, Kate, and Sawyer throughout the episode, the way that the tables have been flipped here on them, because throughout the entirety of the first two seasons, the others were presented as like dirty, grungy, rag-wearing monsters. And here, it's really Jack, Kate, and Sawyer that are the dirty, grungy monsters. Like Jack is like shouting like a gorilla and trying to climb up chains and kicking windows. And
Sawyer is literally in a bear cage.
yeah, and Kate gets thrown into a bear cage later as well. Meanwhile, the others in this situation are all very clean, clean shaven. Yeah, everything is very sanitized. And Juliet is the one like trying to talk sense and be civil to Jack. It's a really nice dichotomy from where we started to now, putting the characters in these positions.
Go ahead.
I talked a little bit about how while we were seeing season 2 where the others are presented in full horror monster mode, that I would kind of miss that when we got to the more civilized others. But you're right that it's an effective piece of topsy-turviness and kind of putting our heroes on the defensive because, yeah, it's like they've only been on this island for, I think, coming up on 70 days now, and just how degraded and far from civilization they are compared to the others with the lives they've built for themselves.
Well, and it's interesting also because that isn't how our people would have treated the others. If they had stolen or abducted them and whatever, they would never have treated them like, okay, we're going to put you in these cages and okay, yeah, they're being made to do hard labor, but I mean, I think our people have done worse.
Well, as Ben will point out to to Jack at the end of the second episode, that their positions are kind of reversed from where he first met the man he thought was Henry Gale, and honestly, Jack is getting treated better than Henry was while in captivity.
Yep,
that is a good point. Well, we get a butt holster check-in.
an anti-butt holster.
Yeah, the anti-butt holster, because as Kate is being led to her polar bear cage, kennel, whatever it is, we see Mr. Friendly escorting her, and he's got his gun tucked down the front of his pants.
Oh, that's when he's taking her to meet Ben.
Oh,
on the
that's right.
beach.
That's right. Yeah, taking her to the polar bear cages later. But yeah, he keeps his tucked down the front of his pants, which makes it a lot easier to draw. But also, if you don't know what you're doing, you run the risk of
Shooting your
shooting
dick
off. Which, if anybody's seen the movie 8 Mile, that's, spoiler alert, a character shoots himself in the dick in that movie.
Oh,
Yeah, sorry, Robert. Another spoilers for another 3-year-old.
Sure.
I think it came out in 2002. Oh,
I'm still
that
shocked
hurts
to see
me.
Anthony Mackie in that movie. It's a fountain of unexpected for me.
Yeah, you really need to see 8 Mile. In fact, we're canceling this episode so that we can all go up to the house and watch 8 Mile.
Okay,
Is
bye.
anybody from Lost in that? Do we have an excuse to cram it into the mid-season watch?
No. Damn.
We talked about Kate getting put in the dress and being taken to have breakfast with Ben. It's interesting that for all that they let her clean up, they let her put on civilized clothes, and Ben tells her that he's doing this to make her feel nice, so she'll have something pleasant to hold on to while the next 2 weeks get very unpleasant. Dun dun dun. But she does have to wear handcuffs while they're eating. So just a reminder that for Kate, civilization, the thing that Ben will promise Jack a chance to get back to, civilization in some ways for Kate means captivity even more than the island has.
And Ben also knows, like we do, just how much Kate loves to stop and stare out at the ocean.
It's true. He leaves her there with her breakfast and her handcuffs to look at the ocean. It's all of her favorite things. It's wearing revealing clothing while staring at the ocean in handcuffs.
Yeah.
Honestly, Kate is faring better than anyone else currently is. So, you know what? Good for her.
Sometimes it pays to be a woman.
I also think it's just interesting that I've noticed a couple of places around these 3 episodes that feel like they kind of dovetail with where things are going to be at the end of season 3. And I'll talk about it more as we go along. But one of them is, we mentioned that, Jack's probably lowest point in his life is still ahead of him. But the season 3 finale is going to be built around a disheveled, wild-eyed Jack Shepherd running around and just screaming at people in a hospital and having another breakdown. And we're going to find out there's a different context for that. But it's interesting how they just, they're sort of these mirror images of each other for each of the, as we get further from the beginning and closer to the end of the season.
Oh, and on a related note, is this Jack's pantiest episode yet? I mean, from a man who already pants excessively.
Everybody was panting in this episode. Are you kidding?
Everybody was, yeah. But Jack especially is just stalking around the room that they've got him locked in,
Like a
panting up a
caged
storm.
Bear.
Exactly. We know why the caged Jack sings. Pants.
And screams.
Yeah. Oh, man.
One thing I wondered is when Juliet comes in as sort of playing kind of the good cop of the others, we've already met Ben and we've met Tom as sort of leadership figures among the others, but Juliet's newly introduced. And I found myself wondering if Miss Clue, who was introduced in Michael's episode near the end of last season, if that was supposed to be, if they were going to keep her as kind of the trifecta of leadership among the others. And whether it was just, no, we want to introduce a new character, or whether things weren't working out with, that performer. I don't know. It's just interesting to look at and be like, some of her mannerisms and her approach do seem similar to the kind of softer approach that Miss Clue took when she was questioning Michael or on the dock scene at the end.
That's true. But do we ever actually see Miss Clue ever again?
She does make one reappearance, and it is brief. But yes, we do see her one more time.
She is established as an interesting character and given a really cool name, and then just sort of fucks off.
And then we become clueless.
Oh.
Yeah, no, I just found myself thinking, because that seemed like they were laying out a bigger path for her, and maybe I haven't read anything confirming this one way or the other, but it was just something I thought watching the way Elizabeth Mitchell plays Juliet. And to be clear, I love Juliet. I'm glad we got her as a character, but yeah, it's interesting.
Well, we get an obligatory Sawyer nickname watched. It turns out that the kid in the bear cage across from him does have a name. It's Carl. When I took this note, I just wrote, "The kid?" question mark. But yes, it turns out his name is Carl, or as Sawyer refers to him, Chachi, of course.
And that's probably something that like so many people today will not get.
Oh, absolutely not.
That hurts.
And then later, after he finally solves the fish biscuit contraption, he just generally calls it Doc Brown, because Back to the Future opens with Doc Brown's own Rube Goldberg device that he uses to feed his dog.
Okay, that explains that.
Yes.
I had no clue.
Yep.
Carl does help him out, and they run their separate ways into the jungle. And Sawyer and Juliet meet, and Sawyer gives her kind of an up and down look in a way that foreshadows kind of what lies ahead for these two characters, and sparks fly because Juliet literally tases him.
Man, this is setting up like the weirdest hourglass plot, throwing another wrench into the love triangle between Jack, Kate, Sawyer, and now Juliet. Because, I'm sorry, Josh Holloway has the most charisma here, both with Evangeline Lilly and with Juliet. I forget the actress's name.
Elizabeth Mitchell.
Yes, Elizabeth Mitchell. Thank you. Yeah, like even before he gets tased, as Robert said, sparks fly. You can tell just by looking at them. But then in the next episode, we get the big kiss between Sawyer and Kate. And then later, is it this season when Jack and Juliet kiss? And then that's going to be flip-flopped because Jack and Kate get off the island together. And in the meantime, Sawyer and Juliet fall in love. And I'm just sick of this. Like, just let's put a stop to this, please.
Do we have to have this gross bullshit romance garbage in every show?
Yes. I mean, these are very attractive people trapped on an island together.
I get it. Ugh.
And the thing is, some of the couples it really works for. We get some great love stories out of this show. It's just not the main ones. And I like Jack's arc across the whole run of this show. There are a lot of people who don't like Jack as a protagonist. I actually think he is a great kind of deconstruction and reconstruction of sort of the hero savior archetype. But yeah, none of his love stories work. He's just so much more interesting as a guy who's wrapped up in his need to prove himself to his dad, his compulsion to fix things, his inability to stop tearing himself down because he thinks it'll build up people around him. All that's interesting. Him making goo-goo eyes at Evangeline Lilly just... It does nothing, and it's a lot of the show's weaker moments.
Well, and I think maybe that's what I don't like. It's these main characters. Even though, Jin and Sun, they are main characters, I don't want it to be like the forefront or like this focus of, the character. Like, just push that shit to the side. Let the other characters have those moments. But Jesus, it's annoying.
It is a problem that the first 6 episodes, a lot is going to hinge on which boy does Kate want to kiss? And if you're not into that, then yeah, these 6 episodes are kind of limp there.
Great.
Yeah. Well, much like everybody else, where the rest of the others keep their guns, Juliet also keeps her taser in her butt crack. Seems like a really bad way to accidentally tase yourself in the ass.
Butt taser.
Yep. Robert, was this one you?
Oh, it was. I just didn't mark it as mine. There are actually 2 philosopher names. I noted down Karl. It's spelled with a K, which presumably a reference to Karl Marx, founder of Marxism and eventually communism and socialism. And then Juliet, we don't hear her last name in this episode, but her last name is Burke, which is, I'm assuming, a reference to Edwin Burke, who was, I believe, an Irish philosopher and politician who is considered kind of the father of modern conservatism. He's most famous for the quote, all that is necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing, which again may play into Juliet's position and the others and sort of the journey she's going to go on in season 3. It may not actually be a thing that the real Edmund Burke said, but it's attributed to him a lot.
Huh. And I believe this next one was yours as well.
Yes. Yeah. I have not been to an AA meeting, but Probably should. I've been drinking a lot. But this is maybe the worst AA meeting ever.
I mean, for all the stuff I've seen on Shameless, like, this absolutely is the worst one.
Wow. I also like immediately felt bad because you were like, man, maybe I should go to AA. I've been drinking a lot recently. And I went, ha. Oh, that might not have been a joke. That might have been a serious thing you just said. I shouldn't laugh when people say things like that. Anyway, Jack, fully embracing the savage role that he's now been thrust into by the others, takes Juliet hostage with a piece of plate to try to secure his freedom and Kate and Sawyer's, and is repeatedly told not to open this one specific door, which, why should he believe Juliet and Ben at this point? They've already fucked with him. Well, Ben has fucked with him so much, and he has no reason to believe Juliet, so he opens the door, which immediately floods the chamber that they're in. And I think I know where the budget for this season went, you guys. This season, like, famously spent all of its money up front. That's why we get so many weird and cheap episodes in the middle. And I thought it meant like, and it probably does, but I thought they meant like they spent most of their fucking budget across the first 6 episodes. Because we get a run of 6 back-to-back episodes here that aired in 2007, and then they took like a 2-month break before the rest of the season. I think it was just this episode.
Yeah, you're probably right.
And to be fair, the underwater or the underground, no, it's underwater place where they're keeping Jack. It's a cool looking set. It's very grungy, very offset from kind of the cool retro 70s thing that the Hatch had going on, but. Yeah, it's also just there's only so much you can do before he's going to get out of there.
Yeah, but they do spend a lot of time in this underwater bunker for these first 6 episodes.
Yeah.
I didn't note it down, but there was a nice moment where Ben confronts him in the hallway where Jack has Juliet hostage and Jack's threatening to kill her with this piece of glass if Ben doesn't let him out, and Ben just says, okay. And then when Jack turns to open the door that he's been warned against, before he's even finished doing it, Ben is diving through a door on his end of the hall and slamming it in the face of Juliet, who's also trying to reach it.
Yeah, like, ouch.
So not the nicest leader to work for.
No, absolutely not.
No, I find it interesting that the 3 people that they've taken from our passengers, they're the 3 who just won't listen. Period. Like, they are the worst listeners. I know there's a lot of bad listeners, Charlie. But my God, like, don't push this button. Okay, push. And, like the Sawyer thing, I will grant you, because I would probably have done that too, especially because there was a shoot. It looked like there was a game and I would have played the game. But Jesus, nobody fucking listens. Just listen.
Now that's got me wondering which 3 survivors would have been the best for them to capture if they wanted people who would, like, Locke, obviously, because I feel like 2 weeks there, Locke would have been like, the others have, this is my destiny to be one of the others, to be the best other.
Oh, I think he could absolutely be manipulated to that.
Also probably Claire.
Yeah, definitely Claire.
Let her move off the beach with her baby and provide her with actual medical care.
Oh, yeah.
And Aaron's a literal child, so he's probably pretty cool to just go along with stuff.
They're easy to brainwash, yeah.
Yeah. There you go. You got your 3 right there.
Right there. Yeah, so Jack's angst and daddy issues, as if they aren't bad enough, he breaks his dad's sobriety streak by literally tackling him at an AA meeting. And Jack does get arrested for this, but his dad is not quite too drunk to call Sarah and get her to bail him out.
Womp.
Yeah. I was trying to think, have we had any episodes so far with fewer main cast members? Because Jack, Kate, Sawyer, and then Ben and Juliet have also both been added to the main cast. So that's just 5. Are there any episodes previously?
I don't think so, because even in our like most insular of episodes, you at least threw in like Hurley or Charlie or Saeed.
Yeah, I would have said like the other 48 days, but even that had Saeed and Shannon show up at the end, which I think tipped it to 7 or 8.
Yeah, and Locke isn't in this episode at all, which is strange. Like,
they do an interesting thing where they kind of start zoomed in just on Jack, Kate, and Sawyer, and then the next episode we continue their story, but zoom out to also see what Jen, Sun, and Saeed are up to. And it's not till the 3rd one that we actually see Locke, Desmond, Charlie, and the rest of the survivors who are still on the beach.
Well, that's a good segue because we're going to move on to episode 302, The Glass Ballerina. This one is on day 69. Let's all go ahead and get it out now. And this is a Jin and Sun episode.
Yes. And we see that, back in her young, maybe 5-6-year-old self, Sun was ruthless because she was like, she broke the glass ballerina, which, we had to give that away early on. But, and her dad's like, did you do this? And she's like, nope, the maid did it. And he's like, if you say that, I'm going to have to fire her. And she's like, nope, the maid did it. Damn, she obviously has learned from her dad.
Yeah, and there's a metaphor in there for rich people versus the working class because we don't get to see the poor maid getting fired, but you just know that fucked her day up.
Twist. She was the mom from Parasite.
Wow. Make that crossover happen.
Yeah, it's interesting that this episode is kind of built around showing Sun having more of an edge than we've maybe seen from her, both in her flashbacks to her, the affair it's confirmed that she was having, and with her willingness to defend herself against the others, which, speaking of, we get a new other in the form of Colleen Pickett, played by Paula Malcolmson, who I think all of us know from something, but maybe just from different stuff. I know her as Trixie, the prostitute on Deadwood, and also on Caprica, the one-season spinoff of Battlestar Galactica. And I think
she was Sons of Anarchy. She was the Irish mom person lady. I forget her
I
name.
thought she was... No, you're right. Yeah. I was thinking that she was the madam.
No,
of that,
no.
brothel that they had.
No,
that's right. That's from the Everyone Goes to Ireland season.
Yep.
Oh, brilliant actress. Not in this show for very long, but just another great character actor that you get to see briefly.
Yeah.
I don't remember what it was that made me write this down, but I put down Sun's kind of a ruthless adult too, and that's never more true than the end of this episode.
I think it's when she's Saeed is talking about sailing to a different spot and setting up a new fire to try ostensibly to signal Jack. Jin doesn't want to do it, and Sun is basically pretending to translate for him, but also just speaking in English about him while looking back and forth as if she's translating to say that Jin doesn't realize that she can sail better than he thinks she can, so they can travel without him if they need to.
Yep.
Yeah, Sun is hardcore.
And we get in the flashback, like I said, we see that she was having an affair with Jai
Lee.
Yeah, Jai Lee, the guy who owned the hotel that Jen used to work at. And the scene where they get up in bed together, there is so little body fat between the two of them. I felt like I was losing weight just watching the scene. These are two chiseled people.
Mm-hmm.
I wish I had.
Yeah, no, same. Looking at the two of them, it really makes you hate yourself.
Yeah.
We talked about it a little bit last time, but yeah, Josh Holloway gets a good run of episodes here. Just they've put his weird bad guy run in season 2 behind him, and he just gets to be kind of that charming rogue again.
Thankfully.
Well, if there's any place for him to be an asshole, like in its full glory, it's here. It's in this situation that we're happy to see him cut loose.
Yeah, that he's just mouthing off to Danny and the others when they're trying to shove them around. Mm-hmm. Another thing I couldn't help noticing is in the flashback when Sun's dad is he finds out that Sun and Jai Lee are having an affair, and so he sends Jin to deliver a message to Jai Lee without telling him explicitly that that's why it is. And when Jin initially wants to walk away, I think Mr. Han, is that her maiden name? Kwan. Is it Kwan? Because Kwan is Jin's last name, right?
Oh,
Pike?
Paik. There we go.
There we go.
P-A-I-K. Yeah.
Yeah, he's kind of yelling and getting emotional about how like Jin is like his family and their family honor has to be restored. The actor, I don't know if it's just his face, but like one of his eyes closes and one of his eyes just bugs out. It's like there's an imbalance, like a seesaw pushing one eye out when he's shouting. It's really unnerving.
Well, at the beginning, when it was young Sun, I stared at his face a little too hard because I couldn't figure out if one of those eyes was real. I really just wonder, like, is one of those real? That's
a good question. We're going to have to pay more attention the next time that we get a Jin and Sun episode, because I I had never noticed that before, but I've definitely noticed the one eye mostly staying normal while the other one bugs the fuck out before.
Which again could be like a nerve thing. Could like there are lots of perfectly legit reasons, but I think it's effective in the context of the scene, but it is weird. I started to write a note and then actually had to erase and edit it mid-scene. So I started to write, Saeed's unblemished record as the camp's smart guy from season 2 takes a hit with his, and I started to write, with his weird habit of lighting signal fires deep in enemy territory and then just hanging out around them. And then while I'm typing that, Sun points out that this doesn't make sense to Saeed and forces him to admit that actually he is trying to lure the others after them so he can kill some and take 2 prisoner to make them tell them where Jack is. But ultimately, that's not that great of a plan either, because Saeed, we get that you're a badass, but you have no idea how dangerous these people are, and your confidence that you can not just overcome a whole group of them, but do it while leaving 2 of them alive, maybe a little much.
Well, I added a note to your note, because notes on notes, man. To be fair, Saeed's track record at this point is pretty spotless. Like, he was right about that whole Henry Gale thing. Now, that confidence is going to take a little bit of a hit later in this episode and kind of bring him back down to earth. But I can see why Super Saeed might think that.
In the flashbacks, we get yet another another scene where Jin and Sun sit down to dinner, and then their domestic strife rears up, and one of them storms off with the dinner uneaten. Which, Korean food is delicious. Have y'all ever been to like a hot pot Korean place or something like that?
No, but I want to.
Gosh,
I do like Korean food, but I've not gotten to experience that yet.
It is just painful to see one or the other of them just storm away from the table with that just delicious stuff being uneaten. Mm-hmm. Again, that's probably why they're both so etched and fit.
Because they get like 1.5 meals a day between their brooding.
Yeah, Jen is beating people into the ground as a mob enforcer on like 50 carbs a day.
Yeah, and Sun is just constantly getting laid. Hey, it burns calories.
Yep.
Butt crack holstered check-in, this time neatly averted by Saeed, who has the goddamn common decency to keep his tank top between the gun and his butt crack.
Thank God.
That's that military training for you.
Exactly. So I appreciate that, Saeed. Thank you.
We do get a fun scene where Sawyer, in the midst of all of his kind of back talk and snarking at Pickett and the others, excuse me, he actually does spark a brief escape attempt. Like he kisses Kate, which goads Pickett to come running over. Sawyer like hits him with a surprise blow and managed to actually come out pretty well on himself in a scuffle with like 2 or 3 of the others. Gets his hand on a gun, but by the time he's done that, Juliet's grabbed Kate and put a gun on her, which Kate's, I think we talked about kind of the needle that swings from like badass to damsel, depending on the needs of a given scene or episode. And it's hard on damsel because, again, the one thing that this show wants to establish about Kate is that she runs. She's a fugitive. She runs from everything. So naturally, when like Sawyer instigates this brawl with like gunfire and tasers, she just stands stock still until it looks like Juliet just comes up and calmly puts a hand on her arm.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's how I saw it.
Yeah.
And she even has that look on her face like, well, I fucked this one up too.
When I watched
Sorry.
it, I wondered if like she'd been like they had, after her meal with Ben, like there'd been some off-screen blackmail, like we were going to find out, oh no, he's like put it like a bomb in Sawyer's head or something, and he'll detonate it if she steps out of line, and that's why she seems so passive. But no, it's just another moment where the writing is just not there for the character.
But Ben is going to pull that trick in just a few short episodes,
yes.
Just not on Kate. Jin once again finds himself flailing in open water. This is after him and Saeed. He figured out Saeed's plan and kind of drops a bomb on Sun, which is that he understands English a lot better than she thinks he does. He knew that this plan was fucked up.
And him making her translate that while staring straight at Saeed is a nicely cold moment.
Oh, it's a total power move, and it works. So Sun stays on the boat while Jin and Saeed are camped up in trees waiting to ambush the others. And we've seen before, the others have a way of just getting through the water onto the beach unnoticed. So naturally, their goal is to take the boat. So they sneak on board the boat, And they try to take off after Sun shoots Colleen. After the whole, like, you're not going to shoot me, you're a good person. Bam. Sun fucking shoots her. Again, she's kind of a ruthless adult, too.
Mm-hmm.
They try to take off with Sun on board, and Jin runs and jumps out into the ocean. And once again, I wrote down here, my dude, stop going out on boats.
But we do get to have a nice little Marco Polo with him and Sun.
It's true, yeah.
One day, those two will learn their lessons about getting on a boat, and it's gonna stick.
Mm-hmm. And being out, submerged in water is really just the best place for the two of them. It's where they're at their strongest.
Damn it, stop.
They always come back together.
Sorry, Cara.
Stop, because I keep having flashbacks and I don't like it.
I will say, not just calling ahead to the end of the series, but to the end of this season. Another thing that's one of those weird mirrors that I was thinking about. Saeed and Jin are involved in an attempt to ambush the others that goes wrong and the tables get turned, which is also something we'll see in the season 3 finale.
Man, they're really just crashing the whole Saeed bus, aren't they? I don't remember the exact details of how that goes down at the end of the season. Maybe I'm wrong there.
I remember it not being his fault that one goes wrong.
Yeah, that's true. Robert or Cara, which one are you?
Cara, I think that one's you.
You mean the sexiest line of the episode?
Oh, I'm the one above about out on the water.
Oh, no, that was the Marco Polo thing.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, I think, Robert, you had put down, Kate asked, why did she call you James?
Yeah, because Juliet addresses him as that when she's telling him to drop the gun.
And it was at that moment that we all realized that Kate was the only person on either island who still didn't realize that his real name is James Ford. Kate is always the last one to know everything.
It's like she's only ever known him as Sawyer. She was the one who said, "Your name's not Sawyer, is it?" way back in his first episode. So the fact that they couldn't even have her phrase that as like, she called you James, that's your name, isn't it? And or to have it at least be like she's putting it together. But no.
Nope.
The writers did not like Kate. That's my thesis.
No, we're like 2 seasons away from her being useful again, I feel. But now we get to the sexiest line of the episode.
So, to create the diversion for Sawyer's attempted escape, he plants a big fat kiss on Kate. Yay. But when they get thrown back in their they're not monkey cages, they're bear cages?
Polar bear cages.
Polar bear cages, yes. He makes a comment that she tastes like strawberries. And that was really sweet and aw. And she says, "You taste like fish biscuits." Wow. I mean,
Bars can't keep that heat apart.
that's, oh God. Although I do want to name whatever animal I get next fish biscuits.
I love that. The only nickname which we get in this entire episode, Sawyer calls Kate Shortcake.
He does
strawberry shortcake.
He does sarcastically call Pickett boss in like a old chain gang style.
Yeah, that's true.
We get Ben Linus comes to see Jack at the end of the episode and decides we talked about how he references his previous captivity and how the tables have turned, but he decides it's time to introduce himself honestly to Jack, which he does by saying his name and then promptly lies by claiming that he's lived on the island his whole life. Because whenever Ben says, "I'm going to be honest with you," or words to that effect, that is when he's about to lie the hardest.
Yeah, and I don't know if that was intended to be a lie, or if at that point the writers really did think that Ben had been on the island his whole life, because we find out later, it is this season, we get his first flashback where we find out that no, he was not born on the island.
Yeah. I can see it as both. A case of the writers changing their minds.
If this was a video podcast, I would have a little counter down in the corner every time one of us coughed just off mic. I think there we go.
412.
That's got to, we got to be in the 40s now at least.
You need some of those little like track counters that you have where you count your laps. But I can see it being a case where the writers had decided that this was going to be a source of Ben's anxiety, that he was someone who was rewriting his past because of hating where he came from. But it also could just be a change of what they were thinking of between now and when we get his flashback. At any rate, he does establish to Jack that they have the ability to communicate and receive news from off the island by sharing some real-world events that happened since the crash of Flight 815. He also gives, I think for one of the first times, oh my gosh, excuse me.
He's got the sickness.
Really do.
Damn it, and I'm in here with him.
I'm one of the infected.
I'm going to have to go get an old hunting rifle and put the two of you down like Old Yeller.
But he establishes on island what the date is. It's sometime, I think, in late November, he says.
November 29th.
Yeah, and he mentions the re-election of George Bush, the death of Christopher Reeve, and the Boston Red Sox winning the first World Series since 1918, which Jack initially laughs at because, of course, as we know, his father's catchphrase was, "That's why the Sox will never win the damn series," to explain just why bad things happened. And can you imagine what the writers thought when they realized that was actually happening in the news and that was something they could pay off?
Mm-hmm. All right, well, that wraps up episode 302, and we're going to move on to 303, further instructions. It's day 68 again, because now we're going back slightly.
Groundhog Day.
And this is a Locke episode, picking up immediately where season 2 ended for him, and we start with an eye watch. And is it just me, or did we all immediately know that was John's eye?
Oh, yeah.
Like, Terry O'Quinn has a very recognizable eye. Maybe it's just because we watched 2 movies, like, back-to-back, The Stepfather 1 and 2.
I feel like I could pick his eye out just... Because they're a interesting color. You know, they're very vivid... I don't know. Whatever the word is.
Well, interestingly, it seems as though the hatch just sort of disappeared from around them.
We see the remnants, and it imploded, but all of the people who were inside it at the time somehow wound up outside. Not really clear how.
So maybe like the implosion came down and then it lifted them up. I don't know. I'm
Like
trying.
they squeezed out like string cheese or something. I don't know.
Maybe.
Exactly. That's how implosions work.
Everybody's throwing their arms up in the air. It's like, they're alive. We weren't going to kill Echo, Locke, and Desmond, you guys. Especially not Desmond, who was a breakout character of the second season. And so not only did they bring Henry and Cusick back as a main cast member, we get to see him running naked through the jungle. So nobody had listened harder to the fans than the writers of Lost when they put that scene down.
Amen. So a little bit later, so for some reason, the whole imploding hatch thing has made John mute. So he decides he needs to go on a spirit quest in order to get his voice back and figure out what his next step is. And he is trying to communicate this to Charlie, that he wants Charlie to stand guard while he goes into his what is it called?
Sweat lodge?
Sweat lodge. I was about to say sweatshop, but that's that's a very different thing. Well, Charlie is trying to figure out what John is trying to tell him that he wants to communicate with, and his guesses are the beach, the sand, the trees, and he says trees make great conversationalists, which is funny if you've ever seen Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers, because Dominic Monaghan spends the majority of that movie talking to trees.
Was this before that or after that?
This is
after.
A couple years after.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Two Towers came out in 2002. And now this season is 2007.
We in Locke's flashbacks, we see him driving a truck in some remote area where he picks up a guy who for a second I thought was Aaron Paul from Breaking Bad, but it's actually Justin Chatwin from Shameless and the little-loved Dragon Ball Evolution movie.
I know he's been in something else because I know that face from somewhere other than Shameless. Because when I saw him in Shameless, I was like, hey, it's that guy that I can't think of where I know him from.
You know him as Timu Aaron Paul.
Well, probably.
He was in a Doctor Who Christmas special at one point.
Not something I would have seen.
But yeah,
I looked at his thing and nothing. I don't know.
They get pulled over by like a state cop or a highway patrolman who looks in the back of the truck and sees a duffel bag full of guns, which Locke informs him he has all the proper paperwork for. And the cop stares him down and says, well, I can still take you in for picking up a hitchhiker, which you can? Is that a thing you can arrest somebody for?
Yeah, I didn't know that picking up hitchhikers was illegal.
I should have looked at it. Maybe there's a state with one of those obscure laws, where like you can't open a book on the third Thursday of the month, and you can't pick up hitchhikers.
And just imagine like a starving person like stumbling out of the jungle, like bleeding badly, and be like, "Help, please, God!" Somebody driving past, be like, "Oh nope, can't break the law with this guy."
Right. Well, it's not like the cops ever just randomly make up rules to enforce to get what they want.
Given what we find out later, I guess this is meant to be kind of a moment that like cements his bond with Locke. Like it was kind of set up, but just seemed like all he does is just like, yeah, he's my uncle. I'm not a hitchhiker, which doesn't seem like it actually does that much given how starved for affection we know John Locke to be, but...
Right. Yeah, it doesn't work out for him very well. But I wrote in the notes that, hey, look, Charlie gets to do something again. It's been a minute since Charlie has been relevant to this show. Even like at the end of season 2, when he was going down into the hatch with Mr. Echo, he was still just sort of window dressing for that whole plot. They could have thrown anybody in there with them. Like Bernard could have gone down there and the plot would have been exactly the same. But they are mending the relationship between Locke and Charlie and establishing him as important to the plot again, which is going to pay off in a very distressing way later this season.
Yeah, and much like Sawyer, Charlie's villain turn is kind of left in the dust, and probably the character's better off for it. One note about Locke's muteness, which only lasts about halfway through the episode, I feel like it probably just happened because they decided having the island take his ability to walk away again would be just treading the same path. But it's kind of an interesting note because there's a story in, I think it's the Gospel of Mark, where a prophet Zechariah gets visited by an angel and is told, you and your wife will have a son. And because Zechariah doubts it, he's like, I need more sign. The angel's like, I'm an angel. I just showed up to tell you this. You need more? Okay, you know what? You can't talk. Just right now, you can't talk anymore. So Zechariah remained mute until his son was born, and he wrote on a tablet that they would give the boy the name that the angel had told them to give him, which was John. And so, yeah, he was the father of John the Baptist. So, yeah, it's an interesting note for John as sort of the prophet of the island to kind of go through that little bit of tribulation.
Once again, I am so glad that you know these things, Robert.
I love learning things because I was trying to come up with like some sort of a logical, okay, if he got sucked into the hatch, but the hatch then the fire burned his lungs. I don't know.
I think it is just sort of reestablishing Locke as the man with the connection to the island after his lapse of faith at the end of season 2. We do eventually get to see his vision. He goes into the sweat lodge and puts some of the goop he smeared on Boone's head wound, presumably, in his mouth, and has a vision where Zomboon, as I think the fans called him at the time, is like spirit guiding him through a vision of the airport. Just chock full of foreshadowing. We have all the characters are kind of clustered around in the same way they are at the moment, but it also teases where they're going to be. So he sees Charlie, Claire, and Aaron and is told, Boone tells him they'll be fine for a while. Jen, Sun, and Saeed are off by themselves, which is how it will also be at the very end of it all. And Hurley is the guy running the ticket counter. So again, I think at this point maybe they had their end game for Hurley in mind, because that doesn't pay off in the episode in any way, but it definitely feels like something that makes sense in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, and I think it's still too early for them to have known what was going to happen to Saeed, Jin, and Sun. Because in the context of the episode, it's just because the three of them are currently together, trekking their way back to the beach camp. But
God, I hate not remembering what the hell happens.
Oh, it'll be better off and more devastating for you later.
Oh, great.
Mm-hmm.
But Locke does eventually come out of his vision, and the first words he speaks are, I'm going to save Mr. Echo's life. Well, he's going to try. In the flashbacks we do, it turns out that he's living in it's called a commune, but I think you've got a more accurate term for it later.
Yeah, I'll just jump in right here with this note because I wrote down, of course, John Locke joined a fucking cult.
I would be shocked if it was the only one.
Right? I mean, we just watched 2 movies where he goes from family to family trying to make the perfect, family unit. And, there could have been a whole spin-off show of John Locke joining various cults. Like, there's a doomsday cult. There's, like, a hippie love cult.
Oh, shit. I'd watch that.
Just,
right.
I want him in one of those long, straight blonde wigs.
Mm-hmm.
Be
Yeah,
awesome.
somebody give me Terry O'Quinn's number.
We get another great guest actor. And doesn't get a lot to do, but Chris Mulkey plays sort of the male leader of the commune. Seems like it's a husband and wife running things. David, you know him as the first guy to be on the receiving end of Mags Bennett's apple pie trick on Justified, but just really one of those great blue-collar or redneck character actors. He was like a rival football coach on Friday Night Lights. Showed up on Captain Phillips. Just great face. Also, I think he plays the mayor of another city on Boardwalk Empire, which I just finished the first season of. So always happy to see him pop up.
Yeah. And we get a Jungle Run check-in this episode because Charlie and Locke are out searching for Mr. Echo, but there's something in the woods going after them. So for the first time in a while, we get to see these two characters running away from something. And most likely a fucking polar bear, because as Charlie points out, Sawyer shot the polar bear, and Locke corrects him and says Sawyer shot a polar bear.
Yeah, duh, Charlie.
Because we know there's two.
Yeah, now we do, because there were at least 2 polar bear cages over on Hydra Island.
Yeah, but boy, the CGI on that.
Oh my God. Also, it's just now occurring to me, the polar bear cages are on the other island.
Polar bears can swim.
Thank you. That's where I was just headed.
All right, cool. Thank you. I'm glad we're all in agreement
Do you
on
think
that.
water can protect you from polar bears? Oh, you fool.
Right? I mean, I was more concerned about the fact that, I don't know, they're in a tropical climate, but, they definitely can swim.
Hey, look, if the island can make a paralyzed man walk, it can make a polar bear survive in the opposite climate.
True. You got me.
I do watch this, and I think of like a decade later, an Arrowverse show would be able to do like a CGI gorilla or giant robot. And those shows never got more than like 25% of the budget that Lost had per episode then, which isn't a knock on either show so much as just, wow, CGI technology got so much better and so much more affordable in that span of time.
Very much so.
That's true. But, in their hunting for this polar bear, it must have been polar bear molting season, because they just kept finding little tufts of fur, which I recognize from the molting of the bun, and I can pull these little tufts of hair out. So just thank God it was polar bear molting season.
Yeah, exactly. And for the listeners who don't know, Cara has a bunny. That wasn't just like her affectionate nickname for her husband.
Yeah, no, sorry. He is a bunny named Attila the Bun.
And also, it's established many times over the course of the show that John Locke is an expert level tracker. So good for him that he didn't have to do a whole lot of tracking to find these tufts of polar bear fur just in plain sight.
The island gave him kind of a nice, easy ramp to kind of get back into the game on.
Yeah, I mean, he was just involved in an implosion. Take it a little easy on him, Island.
Sort of like the breadcrumbs in Hansel and Gretel.
Mm-hmm.
When he's going into the polar bear's cave where he's tracked Echo to, Charlie wants to go in with him, and when Locke tells him not to, Charlie shouts, "You don't get to tell me what to do," which I think by this point means that Locke has probably been on the receiving end of his "don't tell me what I can't do" catchphrase more often than he's actually gotten to say it.
That is a good point.
Yeah. Well, once they find Mr. Echo, they're playing a terrible game of tug of war with a polar bear, and Mr. Echo is the rope, and that's the wrong thing to do.
I really thought they were going to pull him out and like his legs would be bloody stuff.
I mean,
something.
me too, but that probably would have been a bridge too far for that time.
But I would have been here for it, though. No, the solution, and I found this to be effective in every game of tug of war that I've ever played, is to bring a bottle of hairspray and a lighter.
Oh, of
Whoever
course.
is opposite you on that rope is gonna give up every time.
Yeah.
I have burned a lot of children, you guys.
And that was just last week.
Oh, man.
Can't believe nobody in Squid Game knew that hack.
All right. We touched on it already, but I put in here, wow, the polar bear CGI has not improved.
No.
The brief glimpses that we get are not brief enough.
Yeah. I forget what exactly happened that I made the note that, it's just sort of another point that John was chosen.
Oh, that's the whole reason that undercover cop kid, the hitchhiker that he picked up, John asked
That's
him,
right.
was I chosen?
That's
and
right.
The kid confirms to him that he was. because as the kid, not really a kid, as the undercover cop says, his psychological profile said that he was amenable to coercion.
Probably underlined at least 3 times.
Boy, is he ever.
Hence why he joins cults.
That's why he joins cults. That's why he joins the cult of the island, and what's going to lead to his unfortunate, untimely death.
Yeah. It is a little awkward that the show just had a nice subversion of the "I know you're a good person and you're not going to shoot me" scene where Colleen tries to pull that on Sun and gets a bullet in the stomach for her trouble. And here it's played completely straight as Eddie says that to Locke and then just walks away while Locke's pointing a rifle at him. We talked about it before, but yeah, the flashbacks had kind of run out of gas at this point because, we joke about it, but yeah, it's just another reminder Locke was kind of a sad dupe who just was desperate for love and approval. There's only so many times you can highlight that before it just starts to feel like you're scornful of the character.
Yeah, and did I black out at the end here, or was there no resolution to that storyline? Because the undercover cop just walks away, and that's it. That's the end of the flashback.
Yep.
I mean, earlier when he goes to the 2 leaders and they're like packing everything up, they're like, well, the cops are coming. We've got all this weed. They're going to shut us down. And Locke's like, they won't shut us down if I shoot a cop, which seems like that logic is questionable. But yeah, that's the last we see is him not shooting the cop. And then, yeah, it's never referenced again.
Presumably something unfortunate happened to that cult.
He got left behind. Come on. They took off, left him in the dirt, and, now he wants his weed back or something.
Well, you want your $30 back? I want my weed. Get me back.
Well, it's better than the alternative, considering he brought them a duffel bag of guns, and the 2 people running this cult didn't really seem like the give up peacefully type.
No.
There was probably a shootout while they were stoned off their fucking gourds.
You would hope.
So Charlie, as he's trekking back, he runs into Charlie and Locke, and they send him on his merry way back to the beach.
You mean Hurley?
Hurley. What did I say?
Charlie, I think.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Hurley encounters Charlie and Locke in the jungle and then makes his way to the beach to deliver the message that he was told to deliver by the others. And when he gets there, he is greeted by Nikki and Paolo,
who are just part of the circle of people asking questions.
And have totally been there the whole time, you guys. It's a crying shame that prior to this episode, we didn't talk about Nikki and Paolo more. Whenever Nikki and Paolo were on the screen, we should have been talking about them. And whenever they weren't on screen, we should have been asking, where are Nikki and Paolo?
I think the only honest thing to do is go back and edit all of our previous episodes to put in references to the doings of Nikki and Paolo.
I'm free this weekend.
Yeah, these fucking dum-dums just sort of show up and immediately start asking questions and inserting themselves into the conversation as though they have been here this entire time. And while, yes, the show has introduced like background characters of varying levels of importance before, the fact that these 2 are like, talking about Jack and Sawyer and Kate by name as though they're all good buddies, it's very jarring because you kind of want Hurley to stop and be like, wait, who the fuck are you 2?
Yes.
That could have actually saved it if every time they interact with a main cast member, that main cast member kind of pauses and tries to carry on the conversation, but is visibly struggling to remember who these people are. Yeah, you. Of course, you can come and get involved too.
But we do end on a great visual here because Hurley lets poor naked Desmond borrow one of his shirts because presumably all of Desmond's clothes imploded.
They evaporate.
They fucking evaporated. He's been wandering around the jungle naked all day. So Hurley gives him one of his oversized tie-dye t-shirts. And at the end of the episode, we see Desmond is just skipping rocks out on the dunes wearing this oversized t-shirt and nothing else. So as I put in the notes, out there skipping rocks and Winnie the Poohing it, a.k.a. shirt cocking it.
I had never heard of it called Winnie the Pooh. I that just is so fucking great.
You could also call it Donald ducking, I bet.
There we go.
Winnie the Poohing is.
I don't know why. There's just something about the phrase shirt cocking that never fails to make me laugh. Oh, man.
We do get one introduction, which when Hurley encounters Desmond and tells him about Jack, Kate, and Sawyer, Desmond just offhandedly mentions, well, Locke will take care of it. He said so in his speech, and Hurley has no idea what he's talking about. Then at the end of the episode, Locke kind of rallies the survivors, talking about how they're going to go get the others back from the others, not the others. We got to figure out a better way to do that.
The A-team.
And so Hurley looks over and realizes that the Desmond was telling him about remembering something that hadn't happened yet. We are going to go a lot further down that well.
Uh-huh. And honestly, I can't wait till we get there. That's one of the highlights of season 3.
Oh, yeah.
So as I discovered trying to update the relevant dates notes here, this is like late March, early April is around the time that this show would go on hiatus for 4 to 6 weeks. So a lot of these dates are still the same from the last ones that I read, in like close air date relevant to where we're at now. The last episode would have been March 30th, 2005, Do No Harm, Season 1. And then March 29th, 2006, Season 2, SOS. So for us, now in Season 3, at this time, on April 18th, 2007 is when Catch 22 aired. And that's episode 317. And then they were on hiatus in 2008. 2009, April 15th, which is today's date. So in 2009, 16 years ago, it's Some Like It Hoth, episode 513, which, if I remember correctly, is a Hurley episode.
Definitely sounds like.
And then April 30th, 2010, so just a little over 15 years ago, Everyone Hates Hugo, episode 612. So that's going to do it for tonight's episodes. We're going to watch another batch of 3 this weekend for next week's episode, so that'll be episodes... Season 3, episodes 4, 5, and 6. And we got to figure out what we want to eat between now and then. But anyway, how are we feeling about social media, you guys?
I was watching videos where someone was using glitter pens to write someone's name. It was very soothing.
I just listened to the audiobook of John Dies at the End, and that was a great time.
Yay!
Yes. Kara and I have successfully gotten Robert onto the the J-Date train.
Way back when that was a web serial, I read like the first chapter or 2 and bookmarked it and then never went back to finish it, but always meant to.
I love that whole series. I got Kara into it, and I'm happy that you're on board with it now as well. I am still using social media, and if you want to follow me online, the best place to do that is on Instagram at DBHensley. You share anything Moodang related, and I'll share more of it right back to you. I love baby hippos.
Oh.
If you want to keep up with Long Walk Productions, you can visit us online at longwalk.us to see more of our original works or hear past episodes that are no longer streaming that contain considerably less coughing from the hosts. You can follow the YouTube links in the show notes. Thank you very much for listening, and if you enjoy this show or any of the shows on this network, because I try so hard not to cough, please make sure to leave us a rating and a review on whatever platform you're listening on.